it's a very pertinent question to ask, how do we build back better?
To build back better or whatever.
We have a chance to reset the clock and build back better than before.
To build back better than before.
Remember the terrible damage of COVID as we try to build back from this global pandemic.
Joe Biden calls it Build Back Better.
Build back better.
Building back better.
To do things differently. To build back better.
We're going to build it back better.
And build it back better.
My plan to build back better.
Start taking all the problems that have been created in education and mental health and start to build back in a positive way.
I have launched a booklet called Build Back Better, Britain After Coronavirus.
It's about building this country back better.
Growing conspiracy following it. It is called the Great Reset.
An unprecedented opportunity to rethink and reset the ways in which we live.
The great opportunity for reset.
The theory even calls Mr. Biden's campaign slogan, Build Back Better, a front for the conspiracy.
Build back better.
Building back better our economy.
Build back better.
All elements of the Great Reset are fundamental to building the future we need.
This pandemic has provided an opportunity for a reset.
It's a big effort to, some would say, to build back better. We would say to really have a great reset.
Conspiracy, conspiracy.
Conspiracy. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Frank Analysis. I'm your host, Franco. You guys read the title. You guys saw that intro. We're going to talk about Build Back Better and what is the agenda behind it. This is being pushed out by a lot of senators, and some of which we thought would have had our backs 4 years ago, and even recently up until 2020. A lot of us thought that people like Bernie Sanders would have had our backs. I have friends who are diving deep into the reconciliation bill, and joining me today to discuss this is my friend Shadow Banned Refugee. He's been on my show before for a panel discussion with my friends Marcus Cage and Charles Anderson of the Lone Wolf podcast. He's also been on Pasta's show, and he went into that bill a little bit, right? So Shadowban, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing fucking excellent. Thanks for having me on, man.
So you want to fill people in a little bit on what you discussed, really briefly with Pasta when you were on this show?
Yeah. So when I was on with Pasta, we kind of went over basically touching the very basic superficial levels of the first 500 pages of the infrastructure package, right? And I'm happy with the show, but at the same time, I don't feel like I was able to really get in because there's just so much information to go through. It's almost impossible to cram these things into an hour segment, right? Unless, And the way that they section it off, there's the way these bills are written is it's tough to put page markers on stuff. So I was able to put a pretty good presentation, I feel, at least together to try and kind of really tie this together with the reconciliation package where it stands and the Build Back Better agenda in total, right? Because this infrastructure package is the infrastructure of your masters, right? We're just filthy plebs and they are the masters. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for this one.
There's so many sectors that they have to look into to try to implement certain policies and change certain things so that they can continue to empower themselves and enrich themselves. And you guys were focusing on the energy sector, and this is an area of expertise that you have because of your background, which Pasta brought you in because he's heard you on Steve's show. So also, before we get started, you want to talk a little bit about your background working in the energy sector?
Yeah. So, so briefly out of high school, I worked in the insurance industry. I was licensed to sell life accident and health insurance in 28 states. I was working for Medicare Part D under Humana. And basically, my job every day was to tell old people, you're fucked. No one's going to pay for your health care. No one's going to, really, it's Medicare Part D, so it's prescription drugs. So nobody's going to pay for your fucking prescription drugs. And the one that really hit me the most, and I will never forget it, was I told an old lady in like the ghetto of Santa Fe. Yeah, I can't find any plans that are going to cover your cancer medications. And she was on a fixed income. So that really broke my soul in a sense. So I went off to be an electrician instead. And I started in the electrical industry when nobody had a job anywhere, right? And I didn't start in the union. Now I am union, but it was impossible to find work, and the wages were really low, and it wasn't the best. It wasn't really working out for me. So I took a job with a friend of mine who had been traveling in the oil and gas sector, right? So I packed up, uprooted, left New Mexico, the only home I ever had, and I thought I hated it here. And then I went to North Dakota, and I worked that Keystone infrastructure pipeline stuff. And so I worked all the way up from like Watford, North Dakota, which is like 40 miles south of the border, Watford and Williston. And then all the way down to basically fucking Mexico, right? All the way down to like Alpine, Texas, in the Texas Valley and El Paso. And I worked in the oil and gas industry as far as like the pipeline industry, but also in the gas station industry. So I did truck stops and gas stations and stuff, working for different companies. And also in that, I worked in some pharmaceutical plants and some meat packing plants and some big tech plants in Fort Collins. So like I've worked in basically the Satan of all industries, right? So yeah, that's my background in this. So I'm just a guy. Like I don't have a degree in like political science or anything like that. I'm just a filthy fucking tradesman doing my thing, you know.
So you've looked at how we're effed in, like the people are effed in pretty much like almost every sector of the country.
Oh yeah.
And it's just gonna keep getting worse. Looking at the direction we're heading into, right?
Oh yeah.
And that's because, you know, like you say, and how you also try to push me to get this right. You know, when I've mentioned this on my shows, like these bills are written by the lobbyists, the people that we're supposed to be fighting against. So we really got to look at the fine print, because they're going to try to get things that look progressive on the surface with their title and everything, including with the Medicare, the current Medicare for All bill, HR 1976 for the 117th Congress, which I discussed with Ali and Sebs, Ali Alexander and Seb Solomon, how they're trying to have a value-based system. They're trying to have like a metric value-based system for almost everything, because they just view us, the people, as an investment, as capital. So yeah, that has to do with, you know, your title here in this PowerPoint, right? What is the agenda of Build Back Better? Oh wait, no, Build Back Totalitarian.
Well, that's just it. So we can just go ahead and jump in now. So the Build Back Totalitarian plan, as I would rather have it put now, it's a fundamental capturing and rethinking of the newest and greatest ways for capital to solidify its hold. Okay. So what is this agenda really? The origin of the Build Back Better slogan comes from Klaus Schwab, the founder of the World Economic Forum. You know, we're all friends with Klaus Schwab, right?
Santa Claus Schwab?
Santa Claus Schwab. Papa was a Nazi, yeah. So this plan is to reinvent capitalism. It's similar to the New Deal legislations, right? Because if anyone knows their history, Roosevelt's biggest claim to fame was he saved capitalism. So on the terms of capital and capital's interests, and with the power of the state behind it, It's going to be based on resilience, future growth, and future-proofing capitalism. Now, this doesn't sound very progressive, so I don't understand why these people are calling this progressive legislation at all. But I did get to pull this this quote from the WEF Forum website. A true recovery from COVID-19 will not be about putting things back together the way they were. We need to build back better, to reset, if we are to address the deep systematic vulnerabilities the pandemic has exposed. For businesses, building back better is about much more than corporate social responsibility. It is about truly aligning markets with the natural, social, and economic systems on which they depend. It is about building real resilience, driving equitable and sustainable growth, and reinventing capitalism itself.
Right in our faces.
Yes.
The connection with the Great Reset and Build Back Better.
Yeah. It's almost like that was their fucking plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
So most people think this is Biden's agenda. Sure, yeah, it's Biden's agenda, but more importantly, it's the bipartisan agenda. In the U.S., this is being developed in 3 pieces of legislation, but increasingly more and more. The Invest in America Act, which is a bipartisan infrastructure bill. The Reconciliation Bill, which is Bernie Sanders' funding bill that everyone's all yippee-skippy hurrah about. And the Build Back Better Act, which has now finally been released in text. Now, with what's-her-face, the Haugen, the Fed, I watched the entire hearing of her in Congress, and there was a multitude of senators that said, I have introduced legislation to blah, 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 which means this was all planned. I haven't read that legislation. I want to get into that legislation. Maybe one of the team can get into that legislation, but I mean, I've already got a fucking full plate. I work a full 40-hour week. I'm a fucking father. I'm a partner, and I'm already doing the infrastructure legislation. So we'll be trying to get on that as soon as we can and figure out exactly what is in their censorship packages for controlling cyberspace, right? So the Democrats are pushing this as the New Deal or the Green New Deal. And Republicans are feigning opposition based on tax and spend, right? You hear this fucking buzzword bullshit that they're always talking about in fucking Congress, in their nice little soundbite clips that they get their fucking, their sycophants and constituents all fucking riled up on. But very few are actually opposed to the main points of legislation. I've only heard, I think, 4 Republican senators actually bring up anything from these pieces of legislation in opposition to it. They use simple platitudes like, this is a woke bill, from Josh Hawley, that fucking stupid bastard.
Like not even getting at the substance of it. Just
right.
dismissing
They
it.
never address the substance because they're all on board for the fucking substance, right? So it's all bullshit. It's all theater. And I can tell you why. Legislation is not written for you. I tell these people all the fucking time. Legislation is not written for you. It's not written by you. They don't have your interest in it fucking heart. Regardless of who you elect, they only have the chance to vote on legislation written by think tanks and lobbying firms. This is a superstructure of smoke and mirrors to give you a placebo effect. Gnomes for Truth, that's my team. Myself, Ali Alexandra, Seb Solomon, Jack Sith. We did actually find a novice mistake in the editing process of one of these bills. This comes out of the Build Back Better legislation. This, as you see here, this weird code at the bottom, this is like a digital watermark for who who edited it, when they edited it. That's a fucking hard word to say.
Yeah.
And how they edited it, right? So I'm sure with enough digging, we can find out who that is, but I can guarantee you it's a fucking lobbyist because it's all over that fucking bill. This exact fucking watermark is all over that fucking bill. And this is an oopsie on their part. They released this legislation as a rough draft and they didn't pull the watermarks on accident. So that's just a little bit of our proof that legislation is It's not for you. It's not for you. The Invest in America Act, an infrastructure for your master to remain your master. This is a private infrastructure to keep you in your fucking place. It's publicly funding private profits, also known as cronyism. Now, there's a fucking argument that people say, this is just capitalism, and I don't want to fucking get into that argument. There's different fucking ways of capitalism that happen. There's different ways of communism. I don't fucking care. This is just what they're doing, right? Publicly, they're publicly funding propaganda, and I can get into all about that. A not so green New Deal, and there's a reason this is bipartisan. Pork a la verga. Bribery and insider trading, social engineering. So let's go ahead and jump in.
Okay, so you're telling me that progressive policies like Medicare for All and the Green New Deal, those aren't written for us, the people? They're not written for, the American progressives that want this passed? It's not written for us?
No, but like if you really believe that, I got some oceanfront property here across the street in New Mexico that you might be interested in. And I also got this bridge in Brooklyn that you might be really interested in investing and buying in. It's top notch. Believe me. It's tremendous. Okay. Believe me.
So it's clear as day how they're working at the behest of the lobbyists as opposed to actually challenging them like they said that they were going to do in 2016 and 2018.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they can speak in platitudes all the time, but as Tessa Fights Robots once told me, she doesn't allow herself to speak in platitudes, and neither do I, right? I don't allow myself to speak in platitudes and talking points because that's what they fucking do. I want to fucking find out what they're really fucking pushing here. Because I can tell you fucking that I'm going to give you a fucking a pony ride and a free elephant if you like. But unless you actually fucking look at the fucking legal contract I'm putting you under, you don't know shit, Holmes. Just don't.
And should we be wary of people that run for third parties that speak in platitudes and don't discuss legislation?
Absolutely. Because when people speak in platitudes, they're doing one of two things, in my personal opinion, and maybe I shouldn't speak in a dichotomy, but they're either lying to you or they don't have a fucking clue what they're talking about. This is a superstructure. They have this set up in such a way that even if you fucking vote in a third party, doesn't fucking matter. There's fucking rules
by
in
some miracle,
Congress.
right?
By some miracle.
Yeah.
Like there's rules in Congress and in the Senate. There's a massive unelected bureaucracy of appointed positions. It's not for you, dude. Like there's no way to fucking change that system just by going and fucking voting in national elections. Maybe you can do stuff at the local level, at the municipal level. I have no problem with municipalities trying to fucking take control of what's theirs. I don't have a fucking problem with that. But at the national level, yeah, sorry, not happening.
So then what would your answer be for decentralization and opting out to take power away from corporations?
Well, my answer is probably an unpopular one, but you can't make the fucking national state work for you. You just can't. The corporate personhood, that's not something that started with fucking Citizens United. The invention of the corporation goes back to the fucking 19th century. The cronyism runs fucking deep at the fucking national level. And you can't fucking arrest that. You can't fucking make it work for you. It doesn't work that way, right? And I don't mean to hurt people's feelings by saying that. Or I guess piss on your parade, right? But I'm also not going to entertain delusions. As far as the municipal level, though, what I mean by radical decentralization is to put power in the hands of the community and the municipal level to take it away from the power of the national government, because the way that capital functions as is cannot function without the state, the massive state that we have. And also the state cannot fucking function without capital, right? They're a symbiotic relationship. They're intertwined so fucking deeply that you can't fucking have one without the other, right? Okay. Radical decentralization or fucking bust. Get to know your fucking community, get to know your neighbors, get to know your fucking run for city council if you'd like, school boards, stuff like that. I don't have a fucking problem with. But like you start talking about fucking, you start talking about the hill, you got another thing coming, you know.
And the best way for us to, understand that and understand how to get to these solutions and to come to this realization that you think the best way is by studying the legislation and how exactly the ruling class that's oppressing us is operating, right? Understanding your enemy and what they're doing, right? And a big part of that is like what you have over here with intelligent automation, automating your liberty away. So they're trying to automate everything. And one of the ways is with digital IDs, which are being pushed out now via, they're doing that in Canada, right? And they're trying to do that with the COVID passports, right?
Right. I mean, the Build Back Better agenda, it's a multinational, right? We no longer live in the early 20th century where the fourth stage of capitalism, imperialism, is the final stage. That's been proven incorrect. We're in something entirely different now. This rings somewhat true to fascism, but also it doesn't have to deal with nationalism at all, right? One of the core tenets of fascism is nationalism, and this is totally fucking international, right? This is states from all across the world, not just the Five Eyes. This is increasingly fucking parts of Africa, right? There's new dictators and cronies being installed by not only the American interests and the European interests, but also Chinese interests. Same thing with South America. And the idea that we still live in a Cold War mentality where it's the West versus everyone else, or it's capitalism versus communism or whatever, that's all incorrect. It's just factually incorrect, right? We've entered into a new age. The 21st century could not have been foreseen by any of the core tenets of the original anti-imperialist, Marxist, or even anarchist thinkers, right? The left-right dichotomy has been flipped on its head, and it doesn't fucking matter anymore because the state and capital are so intertwined now. So, yeah, like
like one thing that people in the 20th century who were anti-imperialist wouldn't have taken into account would be things like automation, right?
Automation. Well, yeah, because automation moves labor power, right? It used to be in the very late part of the 20th century, starting in the 70s, but really fucking going into hyperdrive at the fall of the Soviet Union and the communist bloc. It was outsourcing that was the big problem, right? It was removing labor power through at the national and local levels by outsourcing it internationally to like to nations with lesser labor stringency, right? For lack of a better term, and for time's sake, I won't really go into that. But now automation is taking all labor power away, and it's increasing more and more. And this is an international agenda. You can see the stuff that's happening in Australia. You can see the stuff that's happening in Germany. You can see the stuff that's happening in Canada, in Africa, in South America, in Central America, in East Asia, and in Northern Asia, in Southern Asia. They're all on this same agenda, right? And automation is going to remove the power of your labor. And so, yeah, like the new push for automation. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm not like some anarcho-primitivist dude that's like, oh, fucking all technology is bad. But like,
it's just under the wrong hands.
Yes.
It can be abusive.
Yes.
But it could do so many wonderful things, but it's just not in the right hands right now. And
absolutely.
We have to evolve our consciousness so that we reduce the chances of it coming to the wrong hands.
Absolutely.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, you can't strike your way out of this one. The power of the strike is dead because of automation, combined with what's left of outsourcing. We've got to come up with a new plan. Right? So let me just jump into this. On page 259 of that infrastructure bill, when we're talking about intelligent transportations, we talk about removing your ability to transport yourself, right? So intelligent transportation systems, in general, the secretary shall develop guidance for using existing flexibilities with respect to the system's engineering analysis described in Part 940 of Title 23, Code of Federal Regulations or successor regulations, implementation, secretary shall ensue any guidance developed under that, blah, blah, blah. Clearly identifies criteria for low risk and exempt intelligent transportation projects with a goal of minimizing unnecessary delay or paperwork burden. They want to make sure it's consistently implemented by the department nationwide and is disseminated at the federal to the federal aid recipients, right? Basically, that hamstrings everyone that requires federal monetary assistance, which is like every fucking buddy, into implementing this intelligent transportation system. Safe routes to teach your children how to walk or something. Safe routes at page 165. The purposes of the program established under Section B shall be to enable and encourage children, including those with disabilities, to walk and bicycle to school, to make bicycling and walking to school a safer and more appealing transportation alternative, thereby encouraging a healthy and active lifestyle from an early age, and to facilitate the planning, development, and implementation of projects and activities that will improve safety and reduce traffic, fuel consumption, and air pollution in the vicinity of schools. You live in essentially planned cities now, so fucking deal with it. The housing coordination process. In general, within a metropolitan planning area serving a transportation management area, the transportation planning process under this section may address the integration of housing, transportation, and economic development strategies through a process that provides for effective integration based on a cooperatively developed and implemented strategy of new and existing transportation facilities eligible for funding under this title in Chapter 53 of Title 49. Now, what they're doing here is they're fully centralizing the planning of the city, right? So Stalinists should be fucking giddy about this, right? This is a way to force people into a specific community to work at a specific factory or work at in a specific place. Because now they can't travel any farther, right? So this, for all intents and purposes, is going to force you to work at a certain place for the housing that you've been designated, right? The housing that you are effectively priced into. Okay. Centrally planned cities continued. A plan described in the clause, this is at page 225, a plan described in the clause may develop regional goals for the integration of housing, transportation, and economic development strategies, better connect housing and employment while mitigating commuting times, align transportation improvements with housing needs, such as housing supply shortages, and proposing proposed housing development, align planning for housing and transportation to address needs in relationship to household incomes within the metropolitan planning area. Now, I didn't fucking build a slide for metropolitan planning areas, but these are effectively massive bureaucracies of state and local governments combined with labor unions and by the way, our labor unions are bought fully captured. Sorry to let you in on this. I'm in a labor union. Sorry, but this is the way it is. And also the capital interests, right? The private interests. So they are planning where you're allowed to work for where you're allowed to live, right? And the reason why they say improvements in housing needs, such as housing supply shortages, that means they're going to engineer through markets the housing shortages away from where you work.
So let's go ahead and continue. How the value-based healthcare system is determined by demographics, this is also like where you work based on this is determining, based off of demographics, where you were born into.
Yes.
It's not fair.
Right. Well, I mean, it's not, but I mean, as I said, this is Stalinists and Juche lovers should be giddy over this, because you will be basically, you might have a couple of options, but you're going to be hamstringed into picking whatever's closest to you. And they're going to make it that way. And they're going to price you out of fucking moving out of the area you've been assigned. Expand housing and economic development within the catchment of areas existing transportation facilities and public transportation services when appropriate, including higher density development and as locally determined manage effects of growth of vehicle miles traveled. See what I mean by manage effects of growth of vehicle miles traveled. Mm-hmm. Experienced in the metropolitan planning area related to housing development and economic development. Increases the share of households with sufficient and affordable access to transportation. Networks of the metropolitan planning area identify the local location of existing and planned housing and employment and transportation options that connect housing and employment, and include a comparison of transportation plans and land use management plans, including zoning plans that may affect road use, public transportation, ridership, and housing development. This fully plans all cities. That's their fucking master plan here.
So does this tie into what we were discussing? You were here for this, right? When we were talking about how people have to pay a fees based on how far they travel. Mm-hmm. And what if they have to travel far for work? They're going to have to pay a fee for that. That's absolutely ridiculous.
Oh yeah, buddy.
People already have to pay a lot to
into that,
get to
like real deep later, but that you're basically, they can't force you to work at a certain place, but you will be priced out of working outside of your designated area. You filthy fucking pleb.
Yeah, because we see like in places like New York City and like Baltimore and Washington D.C., the closer you live to the city, the more expensive housing is. So people have to find more affordable housing, at further away from the city.
Well,
like
absolutely.
Sometimes it's over an hour away.
Yeah, I live south of Albuquerque because Albuquerque is way too fucking expensive, yo. Like, way too fucking expensive. I mean, general rule is you're not. So the way that I think it's the Torah, I want to say, it's an old rule that people use, but you're not supposed to designate more than a third of your income to housing expenses. How the fuck do you do that in a city? And also the way that Martin Luther King put it to me, Martin Luther King Jr. put it to me once was, you're never supposed to finance a home for more than twice your yearly income. How the fuck do you do that in a city? So most people do fucking end up having to fucking move to an affordable area and then travel in. And corporations don't fucking like that. You have too much freedom there. You have
And
too
it's
much
crazy
financial
because
freedom.
proportionally, if we look at how people would live in the 50s and 60s and 70s, people would find more affordable housing proportionally during those times than they do now. And it's just happening so gradually that people don't notice. Like the Black Panthers could afford like an apartment in New York City back in like the 60s, like just putting down, and they would rent it out where they would have meetings. But that's impossible to do now for working
Yeah.
class people in New York City.
Absolutely. I mean, I kind of draw on the analogy of frogs in water, right? Like a frog will jump out if you throw it into boiling water immediately, right? But if you throw a frog into a pot of cold water and then you bring it to boiling, it's not going to notice. It's going to die in there. And that's basically the central planner corporate private public partnership plan here, and it's been their plan for at least 100 years. They've turned up the heat on you so gradually that you don't even notice until
over generations.
Yeah, over generations, exactly. I mean, this is a plan that's been in effect for over 100 years. I mean, it has some right-wing connotations, but the creature from Jekyll Island kind of explains the formation of the Federal Reserve and how central banking fucking dictates money supply and all that. It's super crazy technical. It's not really a long read if you want to get into it. But I mean, this is how they fucking control you. And now we're at the point of complete control. You're in the grasp, right? And there's no real way out of it unless you fucking somehow come into a lottery, right? But other than that, like you're stuck.
It's a miracle. Yeah.
There's a whole fucking psychological aspect to that. I've been watching Squid Game on Netflix. I highly recommend it because it's the perfect fucking analogy for market systems. At least
we
I
wouldn't have
think
been
so.
in that situation if it wasn't
Right.
for the current system that we have, right?
Yes, exactly. So moving on, you're not a human anymore. You're human capital.
That's
At page 228, state human capital plans. In general, not later than 18 months after the date of the enactment of this section, the secretary shall encourage each state to develop a voluntary plan to be known as the Human Capital Plan. That provides for the immediate and long-term personnel and workforce needs of the state with respect to the capacity of the state to deliver transportation and public infrastructure eligible under this title. Now, what they mean by the state is like the state that you live in, right? Your demographic, but it's more of a double entendre at that point because it's the state that's telling you you are their investment, right? The state in the anarchist sense, right? The arbitrary power structure that assigns you your worth. And I remember when I first went on Convo Couch for that "What the fuck are you talking about" segment. I remember what I brought to it was Biden talking about human capital. And I was so fucking offended by that. I'm like, bitch, I'm not your fucking capital. I'm a fucking human being.
Yeah.
Right. And it really offended me. Turns out it offends other people. I've been watching more and more Alison McDowell lately, and she's been on this for over a year now, human capital. And it's panning out because you are their investment. You belong to them. That's what your fucking Social Security means to them. Your fucking numbers on their spreadsheet, whether you like it or not. Now, your data exists to serve the master. Page 239, it says, gather travel data and travel demand forecasts from a representative sample of states and metropolitan planning organizations. Page 240, it uses the data and forecasts gathered under subparagraph A to compare travel demand forecasts with the observed data, including traffic counts, travel mode share, and public transit ridership, and vehicle occupancy measures, and uses the information described in subparagraphs 10A and B. The streets aren't complete yet, so we need complete streets. This is another program. At page 242, the definition of complete street standards or policies. In this section, the term complete street standards or policies means standards or policies that ensure the safe and adequate accommodation of all users of the transportation system, including pedestrians, bicyclists, public transportation users, children, older individuals, individuals with disabilities, motorists, and freight vehicles. Now, you notice how they put motorists and freight vehicles at the very end? And they start with pedestrians and bicyclists. They want you to be walking to work. They want you to live right next to where you work. Okay. One federal decision and the czarification of appointed offices. At page 245, the authorization. The term authorization means any environmental license, permit, approval, finding, or other administrative decision related to the environmental review process that is required under federal law to site, construct, or reconstruct a project. What they're doing here is all public infrastructure projects only have one decision to say if it's okay or not, and that's at the federal level. These are appointed offices. These are secretaries. The Secretary of the Interior, Transportation Secretary. Those unelected bureaucratic offices that you have zero control over other than in presidential elections. And even in those presidential elections, you never fucking get a say on who the fuck is appointed to these offices. Alternative contracting methods for tribal lands, you say? Project bundling, bridge building, design build contracting, two-phase contracting, long-term concession agreements, and any method tested or that could be tested under an experimental program relating to contracting methods carried out by the Secretary. What they're telling you right here, long-term concession agreements is privatization of utilities. That's exactly what that means. So they're looking to privatize all tribal lands here. Now, what they say, and what project bundling is they say they want to do 5-6 projects, right? And they bundled them all into one fucking big project. They put a fancy platitude name on it, and they get allotted that however many $1 million for that. Now, when they cut costs on those projects, especially in tribal lands, because there's not as many inspections, they get to pocket the fucking difference. So that's a money laundering operation. And then design build contracting. I've done some design build contracting. A lot of that has to do with engineering firms cost too much, blah, 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 blah. And so the contractor is allowed to design build this particular project or whatever the fuck it might be. And when they do that, they can cut massive amounts of fucking corners. So tribal lands are in the crosshairs of these motherfuckers, and they're telling you right fucking here.
That's where all the pipelines are built. Most of them are on sacred Native American lands.
Oh yes, but it's not just pipelines, man. You're talking housing at that point. All the infrastructure like roads, bridges, and fucking tunnels and dikes and all those other things. I don't know jack shit about dikes and fucking and waterways because I live in a fucking desert. Sorry, but there's a lot of fucking money to be made in those fucking areas, and they're just gonna fucking take. Say, look at us, how wonderful we are. We did this for the tribe, and the tribe is gonna get the shit end of the stick, as always.
Wow.
Oh yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
Nothing to see here except everything 24/7. Section 11308, geomatic data. In general, the Secretary shall develop guidance for the acceptance and use of information obtained from non-federal entity through geomatic techniques, including remote sensing and land surveying, cartography, geographic information systems, global navigation satellite systems, photogrammetry, and other remote means. Basically, this puts all this puts a massive data mine in the hands of the state, and they get to see it all whenever the fuck they'd like. Eminent domain, right of way. So eminent domain is the term that was widely accepted for over 100 years. Basically, the state comes in and says, we need this, it's yours, but we're going to take it. You can either sell it at this super crazy low price, or we're just going to take it anyway. Now, this is at page 270. The evaluation of projects within an operational right-of-way. Definitions, eligible project or activity in general. This section, the term eligible project or activity means a project or activity within an existing operational right-of-way, as defined of Title 23 Code of Federal Regulations, successor regulations. Now, what they're saying here is the right-of-way of a highway. Once they fucking claim eminent domain through whatever land that they're gonna fucking take to put the highway through, the right-of-way extends, right? So the highway can be like 100 meters wide or some shit, or 100 feet wide, let's say. The right-of-way can be 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 wide. They're not fucking selling you. But this puts that fucking bit of land in the jurisdiction of the federal government, right? Of the Secretary of Interior, Secretary of Transportation, all these unelected bureaucrats. It puts all the fucking contracting power and the awarding process and the grant process in their fucking hands for whatever they're going to put in this right of way. And I'll get into exactly what they plan to put in that right of way. NEPA, the National Environmental Protection Act. Who really needs the EPA, right? At 274, efficient implementation of NEPA. Definitions in this subsection. Environmental document. The term environmental document means an environmental impact statement, environmental assessment, categorical exclusion, or other document prepared under the National Environmental Policy Act, right? They're amending the NEPA. That's what they're doing here.
So this ties into what you were discussing with Pasta, right?
Absolutely.
When you were on his show?
Absolutely. This is sort of the groundwork of how they do that, right? So there, let's just go ahead and amend that pesky NEPA, right? The National Environmental Policy Act of 1969 reporting program. This code is amended by inserting after the section of following. So what they do with these bills is they put like after paragraph C by inserting semicolon and after semicolon inserting blah 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 blah, right? And they do this for fucking pages, dude. So basically, I summed it up. The basic gist of these 20 or so pages is it centralizes the process of the environmental impact statements and makes the states financially responsible for the decisions that only the federal government appointed bureaucrats make. So if something goes wrong, it's all on the state, even though they had no fucking say in whether it could be done or not. So oversight sucks. Let's go ahead and get rid of that. Before the commencement, at page 288, before the commencement of the utility relocation activities, an environmental review process was completed for the early utility relocation project that resulted in finding that the early utility relocation project would not result in significant adverse environmental impacts and would comply with other applicable federal environmental requirements. The early utility relocation project did not influence the environmental review process for that, blah, 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 blah. So what they're saying here is they're looking to relocate some utilities. Now, what is a fucking utility? There's all kinds of different utilities, right? There's internet, there's power lines, there's water, there's stormwater, gas, and more gas.
Right, natural gas.
Natural gas. It's so natural, fam. It's all right. And what they're doing with that, with this whole section here, is they're saying there needs to be a report, but that report can't influence the environmental review. But the way that the reports have to be put in is it's one bureaucratic office back to the same bureaucratic office. It's the same problem that we have with police fucking investigating themselves, right? So it's a smoke and mirrors game, but basically they get rid of all fucking oversight from any fucking legislative body. Oh, that's yours? Nah, that's mine. Oh, you got $200? Cool. No, I got $200. Shout out to Debo. At page 290, applicability of other positions. Nothing in this section affects the applicability of other requirements that would otherwise apply to an early utility relocation project, including any applicable requirements under the Uniform Relocation Assistance and Real Property Acquisition Policies Act of 1970s. That's the right-of-way and eminent domain I'm talking about, including regulations under Part 24 of 21, Title 49, Code of Federal Regulations, and the Civil Rights Act, which means they don't have to fucking follow any of the rules of the fucking Civil Rights Act when they're taking this.
So they can be as racist as they can be, as they want.
They can do whatever the fuck they want.
And with the slide that you showed previous to that, that also means that if there's another colonial pipeline spill, the colonial pipeline, the investors, they can get away with it. The companies can get away with any spill that happens.
Yes, it financially makes the state responsible. And the company doesn't have to fucking dish out any cash to clean up their fucking mess.
So our tax money will clean up the mess.
Yes. The tax money that also subsidized the fucking pipeline to go in the first place.
When really, if we put a vote to it, the majority of the people probably don't even want it.
Exactly.
And you say that we live in the land of the free?
Yes.
What?
For the land of the free and the home of the slave, right?
Right.
Yeah. This is typical cronyism, right? This is socializing the risk, privatizing the profits. Fucking time-honored tradition. Hey, treaties mean nothing, you savages. Certain gathering lines located on federal land and Indian land. The term Indian land means the land, the title to which is held by the United States in trust for Indian tribe or an individual Indian, or an Indian tribe or an individual Indian, subject to restriction by the United States against alienation. What this means is they're setting up to do stuff on Indian land. Gathering
Even
lines.
More.
Yes. Gathering lines are okay in the oil and gas industry. A gathering line is what takes all your crude and gas and processed water and all that shit and brings it from all the wells into one centralized line. That's what a gathering line is. It gathers all the fucking product onto one main pipeline. Oh, the new pipelines or something like that. I don't fucking know. Page 294, gathering line and associated field compression or pumping unit. In general, the term gathering line and associated field compression or pumping unit means a pipeline that is installed to transport oil, natural gas, relating constituents, or produced water from one or more wells drilled and completed to produce oil or gas. And if necessary, one or more compressors or pumps to raise the pressure of the transported oil, natural gas, related constituents, or produced water to higher pressures, necessary to enable the oil, natural gas, and related constituents or produced water to flow into pipelines and other facilities. Now, what this means is they have to they're defining how that they do what we call them repumps, but it pressurizes it enough to where it can travel a longer distance, right? So they're fucking codifying for some reason in this green new pipeline shit all the fucking things for repump. Pipeline acquisition. In general, subject to paragraph 2, the issuance of sundry notice of right-of-way for a gathering line and associated field compression or pumping unit that is located on federal land or Indian land that services any oil or gas may be considered by the Secretary to be an action that is categorically excluded from the Title 40 Code of the Federal Regulations. The date of the enactment of this act for the purposes of the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969. If the gathering line and associated field compression, for the gathering line and associated field compression or pumping unit, this excludes any fucking oversight. They get to fucking just put in a fucking pipeline wherever they want. And they get to fucking figure, and the sundry notice of right of way, that's just, I'm taking your land to put my pipeline in there. That's what they're doing here. So you don't like pipelines because that sucks for you, are within a field unit or unit for which an improved land use plan or an environmental document prepared pursuant to the NEPA analyze transportation of oil, natural gas, or produced water from one or more oil gas wells in the field or unit as a reasonably foreseeable activity. And what they say here, an approved land use plan. That approved land use plan is all decided by a bureaucrat that was not fucking elected, and they just get to take it. It's theirs now, and they can fucking figure out what the fuck they want to do with that. And you have nothing that you can say about it. Too bad. Sucks for you. And something else I needed to bring up is produced water. So when you do fracking, you have something called produced water. We called it brackish. When you inject the slurry into the ground of like 490 some fucking chemicals, it creates that reaction and makes it go kaboom. In the shale, different fucking things are going to be released by that at different densities and different depths. So that includes fucking crude oil and natural gas and sulfates and all kinds of nasty shit, but also water. It's the water produced from the fracking, right? And it's incredibly salty. It's incredibly fucking toxic. And for that reason, most of the time, they don't fucking put that shit through pipelines because it's so fucking toxic and so fucking corrosive that it eats the steel that the fucking pipeline is made out of. And then if it leaks, you've got a fucking serious natural disaster on your fucking hands here, dude. Like it contaminates the groundwater and then it contaminates the water table beneath it. And you can't fucking separate produced water once it's fucking contaminated your ground and well water. You can't fucking separate it because it's made the chemical bond, right? It's much easier to fucking pull gas and crude out of your water supply than it is to pull fucking produced water out. You can't fucking pull it. So this is a produced water spill is much fucking worse than a product spill.
So are we looking at a bunch of more potential Flint, Michigan cases happening across the country, but is lead's not necessarily being used, but other chemicals are being used that can still cause negative effects to the human body, right?
Oh, yes. And you're looking at poisoning the entire well, right? I mean, if they have a produced water line over top of the Mississippi, game fucking over for fucking the entire South. It'll fuck the Gulf of Mexico. In the certain fucking places in California where they have fracking in the mountains, there goes California's fucking water. All throughout the Appalachian Mountains, there goes the entire water supply for the eastern seaboard.
And it's not like they don't know this. It's like they purposely are trying to kill us all off so that all that's left is just the ruling class and a bunch of AI that does the work for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and also, I mean, if they can poison it, they can purify it and then sell it back to you for a fucking increased premium, can't they?
Oh my God.
Yeah. Most people don't talk about produced water, but I consider that the most toxic part of fracking. it's bad fucking news. Yeah, I see. It's the Green New Pipeline. Are located adjacent to or within any existing disturbed area or an existing corridor for a right of way, and reduce in the case of a gathering line and associated fuel compression or pumping unit transporting methane, the total quantity of methane that would otherwise be vented, flared, or unintentionally emitted from the field or unit, or in the case of gathering line and associated fuel compression or pumping unit not transporting methane, the vehicular traffic that would otherwise service the field or unit. What they're telling you there is, so I don't know if anyone's ever seen a flare off. You can see it all throughout oil and gas country, but it's where they burn off impurities, but more importantly, over pressure. Right? Because when you're pumping down the pipeline, if you have too much pressure, you can have a blowout. So they have these flare towers that release that fucking pressure, and then they burn it off at the flare, right? And it's not fucking good for the fucking environment. But they're trying here to publicly fund less flare-off towers, but also publicly fund pulling out the last drop of gas, right? Does that make sense? So like having a redundancy line that fucking pressurizes in the case of over-pressurization. I've seen that used in some applications. But also they're going to be doing something with the impurities at that point too. Like there's sulfides and other stuff like that that they're going to have to figure out what to do with that. But this is their language for what they're trying to do. And I just happen to have an eye for it because I work in the industry.
Because of your background.
Right. Yeah. Right. So yeah, it's Green New Pipelines because we got to do something to, we got to do something to, what does it say? Reduce the methane that would otherwise be vented, flared, or unintentionally emitted. So they're publicly funding also leaks. If they say unintentionally emitted, they're publicly funding fixing leaks. And so now that pipelines have been put on steroids, let's talk about climate change. Anything else before we move into the climate change section of that bill?
That's their focus, right? Because they don't really talk about any other environmental destruction, plastics getting into the ocean, environmental effects caused by leaks, which happen 100% of the time we have a pipeline. But I mean, this is it, right? So I'm sure that they're going to do something to fix or at least mitigate climate change, right? In this bill, which is being pushed out by the champion of the environment, Bernie Sanders, and his sidekicks, the squad over in Congress.
Mm-hmm. Bernie Sanders and the gang, they're really concerned about climate change and what kind of future are we leaving for our children and our grandchildren. Yeah.
The system that we have is corrupt. We have to change it. Are you ready for a revolution?
Are you ready? Are you ready to make sure that the billionaires no longer have undue influence in the halls of Congress? Fucking lion sack of shit. I mean,
of course, man. He is working at the behest of them and poisoning us.
Oh, you fucking bet.
You guys are you guys hearing this? Bernie Sanders is poisoning us and enriching the people that he's making you think that he's fighting against.
Yep. Welcome to fucking accidentally taking the red pill. If you didn't want to fucking take the red pill, stop watching this.
Is he a cuck at that point, or is he just a snake oil salesman?
I think
or both.
I think he's both. Maybe his reptile brain got excited or some shit.
Okay, so here it's saying that there's grants for charging and fueling the infrastructure.
Oh yeah, buddy. So let's talk about that climate change. Subtitle D, climate change, right? Grants for charging and fueling infrastructure. The purpose of this section is to establish a grant program to strategically deploy publicly accessible electric vehicle charging infrastructure, hydrogen fueling infrastructure, propane fueling infrastructure, and natural gas fueling infrastructure along designated alternative fuel corridors or in certain other locations that will be accessible to all drivers of electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles, propane vehicles, and natural gas vehicles. Now, which one of those things has anything to do with green technology? I'll give you a fucking
Absolutely
hint.
nothing.
Yes. But this is their grand plan for climate change.
It's like when the Democrats were bragging about how Obama was able to reduce the effects of climate change because he switched to natural gas when really it was still exacerbating the environment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I don't even know what kind of analogy to place on it. But I can assure you that gasoline is it's not fucking worse than any of these fucking things. Gasoline and diesel both, they're not. They're just not. Like,
and again, you have to frack for it, which is again, there's 100% chance that you will continue to destroy the environment because of the leaks.
Yeah, I mean, I could do an entire segment on bulkheads failing. I can do an entire and how they hide leaks. The way that the fucking laws are written. Yeah.
And the negative health outcomes on people.
Oh, yeah.
Increasing earthquakes and all that as well.
I'll never forget that in Bowman, North Dakota, fucking everyone over the age of fucking 55 had cancer. It's one of the reasons why I had to leave the industry, because I knew I was part of that. I was hurting people. You know? There's a whole lot of fucking like repentance of some sort that I got to do because I was part of that. Right? You poison people for your pocketbook in that industry, and you know it. That's why most of them, at least I think most of them turn out to be fucking drug addicts and alcoholics, because you can't fucking allow yourself to feel that.
And then people who work in agriculture as well, they have to put these herbicides and pesticides that are filled with glyphosate, which leads to diseases like lymphoma, like cancer, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
Yes.
Which I'm sure that the leaks like this, when it gets on the environment, that gets into bodies of water, which then leads to our agriculture, our crops, and then these companies, they don't care, they'll sell it to people, and then we get autoimmune diseases or we get cancer.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I mean, it's seldom discussed, like just how bad it is for people. But I mean,
if we look at the levels of glyphosate in our bodies and plastic, it's really disturbing how high it is.
But there's also another aspect to this, in that the refining process, and that's one of the reasons why they created ultra low sulfur diesel. That was a scam, because diesel actually burns cleaner with more sulfur, because the sulfur heats it up hotter. So it actually fucking disintegrates more of the particulates of hydrocarbons that are released. But the reason why they started to strip the sulfur out of diesel is because they were putting it into fertilizer. So this also further fucking puts money into the fucking agriculture industry, right? It's the whole fertilizer industry is a whole fucking game. Like, that's other shit that I found out working in the industry. Yeah, like, no one should be using ultra low highway sulfur diesel, period. Green new stakeholder capitalism. Page 304. Collaborative engagement with stakeholders, including automobile manufacturers, utilities, infrastructure providers, technology providers, electric charging, hydrogen, propane, and natural gas fueling providers, metropolitan planning organizations, states, Indian tribes, and units of local governments, fleet owners, fleet managers, fuel station owners and operators, labor organizations, infrastructure, construction, and component parts and suppliers, and multi-state and regional entities. This is what we hear a lot in I guess this could be what the new stage of capitalism is, and the union of the corporation and the international state. I guess we could just call it stakeholder capitalism. This isn't entirely new. No one's found a way to fucking combat it yet. Let's engineer that green new market. Page 305. To foster enhanced coordinated public-private or private investment in electric vehicle charging infrastructure, hydrogen fueling infrastructure, propane fueling infrastructure, or natural gas fueling infrastructure. To expand deployment of electric vehicle charging infrastructure, hydrogen fueling infrastructure, propane fueling infrastructure, or natural gas fueling infrastructure. To protect personal privacy and ensure cybersecurity. What they're doing here is foster enhanced coordinated. What they're doing here is they're engineering a new market. They're generally what happens in any type of market is where there is a demand, a supply follows, right? They're purposely creating the supply first, then engineering the demand later so that they can capitalize on the rollout of the new market. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've twist-turned the market around. Green new surveillance tech. The infrastructure installation, at page 306, sorry. Infrastructure installation that can be responsible to technology advancements such as accommodating autonomous vehicles, vehicle-to-grid technology, and future charging methods. Page 307, an assessment of the estimated emissions that will be reduced through the use of electric vehicle charging infrastructure and all their other fucking fueling infrastructures, which shall be conducted using the alternative fuel life cycle, environmental and economic transportation, A-Fleet tool developed by Argonne National Laboratories, or a successor tool. Shout out to Ali Alexandra. This is right down the street from you.
And they're also going to do this with the Internet of all things.
Oh yeah, and I'm going to get into that as well.
Yeah.
Because I got all that shit. You're in the matrix now, bitch. Page 325, a project for the deployment of infrastructure-based intelligent transportation systems. Capital improvements and the installation of vehicle-to-infrastructure communications equipment, including retrofitting dedicated short-range communications, DSRC technology, deployed as part of an existing pilot program in the FAST Act, to cellular vehicle-to-everything technology. This is the IoT you're talking about.
Yeah.
So my phone bounces off your radio to the fucking red light over there to the camera on the fucking on the light pole over there to the
somebody's
fucking
Alexa
computer.
in like the apartment that's like right over there.
Yes, yes. This literally fucking puts you in the fucking matrix, and they can fucking create a fucking digital fucking world to track where every fucking body is. Isn't that fucking
There's
cool?
no escape.
Nope. This puts you in the
unless
fucking
what?
Matrix.
Unless you like run into the forest, but then you're by yourself. How can you survive in the forest by yourself?
even that's being commodified, brother. And I will get into that too. We promise we won't raise your taxes. A project or strategy that is designed to support congestion pricing, shifting transportation demand to non-peak hours or other transportation modes, increasing vehicle occupancy, rates or otherwise reducing demand for roads, including electronic toll collection and travel demand management strategies and programs. Promise we're not raising your taxes. And we decided to root now, puto, integrated congestion management systems. The term integrated congestion management system means a system for the integration of management and operations of a regional transportation system that includes, at a minimum, traffic incident management, work zone management, traffic signal timing, managed lanes, real-time traveler information, and active traffic management in order to maximize the capacity of all facilities and modes across the applicable region. What they're saying here is, once they roll out their automated shit, or you have your Google Maps, or I don't know what the fucking the Apple equivalent is,
or the Amazon equivalent now,
or the Amazon equivalent. What they're rolling out here is your route is going to be decided on what's least congested, regardless of how fast it is for you or where you got to be in what time. And as soon as it's automated, they get to fucking decide where you fucking go. Isn't that cool?
It's already like when you go on Maps or Google Maps, they decide like it on default, like it's decided to head to the fastest route using tolls, or using main roads, even though they know that there's shortcuts that exist that, you know, you don't have to pay so much in tolls, or you don't have to take main roads.
I'll get into that too, buddy. I'm going to get into that right now. We promise this is a tax cut for the working and middle class. I've heard fucking Biden say this a fucking million times. Use of tolling in general, notwithstanding subsection and section 301 and subject to subparagraphs, and the secretary shall allow the use of tolls on the interstate system as part of the project carried out with a grant under the program. If you use an interstate, you're going to be fucking paying a toll, motherfucker. Bitch better have my money.
I'm just trying to go to my kid's soccer game. I have to pay a toll to get on the highway to get there. So many additional fees on top of fees.
Oh yeah, buddy.
Can't live life.
Oh yeah. Well,
but
it used to be a tax per gallon at the pump, but if they're transitioning from away from gasoline, which is not any fucking dirtier than what they're fucking transitioning you into, they can just charge you however much you fucking drive per mile on your fucking interstate. How do you feel about that? How about that?
Is there anywhere in the world that we can run away?
No, man. This is the fucking global Build Back Better agenda.
Like we can't go to Tibet, or we can't go like hide up in the mountains with some monks or anything.
Mm-hmm. You're locked in the Matrix now, Holmes.
Well, then we remember what's his name is bought off by the intelligence. What's his name? The Tibetan monk. Fuck, I should know his name.
The Dalai Lama?
The Dalai Lama.
Oh, yeah. That dude's an oligarch. I don't give a fuck what anyone says. Yeah.
Even a lot of these like spirituality channels, like a lot of them, if you listen to some of the things that they say and there's political views, it sounds like they're assets.
There's some people that I have hope for. A lot of them happen to be recovering addicts. I'll just say that. Because if you're a recovering addict, chances are you've had to look deep inside yourself and find some things and deal with some things. And yeah, I have all the love in the world for recovering addicts. Healthy streets, page 380. Cool pavement means a pavement with reflective surfaces with higher albedo to decrease the surface temperature of that pavement. If you're into investing, I would tell you to fucking invest in whoever holds the patents and who does the manufacturing on albedo, or whatever the fuck that is. I saw some news article, but it was somewhere in Los Angeles where they were literally painting the fucking roads white. Bring you fucking sunglasses. And wear sunscreen, because that type of reflection, that's going to fuck you up. That's going to be some serious fucking UV radiation on your ass. Because I work on top of roofs, right? TPO roofs, the fucking white rubbery shit. And I've worked with people that quite literally had sunburns on their fucking eyeballs from working on that shit and not wearing sunglasses.
Oh my God. Are they partially blind?
Well, he was already partially blind before that, but yeah, he said it got worse after that.
Oh man,
poor fucking guy. So you ain't driving no more, you fucking filthy pleb. Page 396, for both rural and urban communities, include a discussion of the impacts that self-driving vehicles will have on existing transportation infrastructure, such as signage and markings, traffic lights and highway capacity and design, the impact on commercial and private traffic flows, infrastructure improvement needs that may be necessary for transportation infrastructure to accommodate self-driving vehicles, the impact on self-driving vehicles on the environment, congestion and vehicle miles traveled, and the impact of self-driving vehicles on mobility. They are setting up to make sure that you ain't driving no more. This is like, this is reminiscent of Total Recall, where everything's a fucking taxi. Also Minority Report. Also fucking Blade Runner. Pick your fucking dystopian future. This is it.
The Giver.
The Giver. Yeah, that's a good one too. The Appalachian Regional Commission. Page 405. To conduct research, analysis, and training to increase broadband adoption efforts in the Appalachian region, or for the construction and deployment of broadband service-related infrastructure in the Appalachian region. Now, why you were saying, is there any place we can hide? This is ensuring that you fucking can't. The Appalachian region has been a time-honored tradition of them goddamn hillbillies. My people, where my fucking family comes from. Where you go up in that mountain and you get left the fuck alone. Ain't nobody coming after your ass, right? They can't fucking find you. And people like it that way, right? But no, that's not going to fucking happen here anymore. Sorry, coal miners, blackland just wasn't enough. Page 406. To conduct research and analysis regarding the economic impact of ethane storage hub in the Appalachian region that supports a more effective energy market performance due to the scale of the project, such as a project with a capacity to store and distribute more than 100,000 barrels per day of hydrocarbon feedstock with a minimum gross heating value of 1,700 BTU per standing foot, with the potential to significantly contribute to economic resilience of the area in which the project is located, and that will help establish a regional energy hub in the Appalachian region for natural gas and natural gas liquids, including hydrogen produced from the steam, methane, reforming of natural gas feedstocks. Now, I had a real hard time finding stuff on ethane. However, I did find out that it is used mostly in the production of plastics. Now, if anyone knows anything about DuPont, one of their main fucking spots to fucking fuck around is in the Appalachian Mountains, West Virginia. If anyone saw that, was Dark Water or whatever the fuck that movie was with the Hulk guy.
With Mark Ruffalo?
Yeah. That all happened in West Virginia, or as they call it out there, West Virginia.
Shout out to Stevie.
Shout out to Stevie!
Yeah.
And this is what they're saying here at the very end, is including hydrogen produced from the steam methane. I don't know how that process works because I was never in that part of natural gas and all that shit. But I can tell you that DuPont has something to fucking do with this because that's their fucking stomping grounds. And coal miners are out of work, and they're going to be more and more out of fucking work. And they're going to need a replacement industry. And being that them miners just had to fucking produce for their families and had to fucking do everything they could to fucking be the man and go down in that fucking mine when it's dark and die a fucking black lung at a young age, they will fucking take this job. And this job is going to kill them too. Sorry to get too dark.
Again, like they're trying to kill us all off. And like as people are dying, they're going to use the excuse, oh, this is why we need AI, more automation, so that we don't put these workers in harm's way. Okay,
Yep.
what jobs are you going to give these people now? And most of them are going to end up homeless, or a lot of them, because of the jobs that they took up.
Oh, yeah.
They could become really depressed. They could take their life away.
Yes.
all of that's it by design. It's more apparent how they're really trying to destroy all of us. Whether we do it to ourselves or they just do it to us by poisoning us.
And anytime those people try to fight back, I mean, the term redneck comes from coal miners that organized into a fucking labor union. And they wore a fucking red bandana around their neck to show I'm a fucking union man. And they fucking opened fire against those fucking terrorists, the Pinkertons and the Boston Detective Agency and all that shit. And I lost an entire branch of my family tree in the Matewan Massacre, as it's known, where the Boston Detective Agency heard some talk about some unionizing coal miners, and they came in and they fucking murdered every man, woman, and children in Matewan, West Virginia. They are fucking ruthless, and they've never seen those hillbillies, those fucking rednecks, those Appalachian folk. They've never seen them as human beings, and they will fucking kill them. And they will take that, but more importantly, from out of desperation, they need a fucking job, and they'll take that job. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the public-private partnership, or as we could call it, fascism.
By Mussolini's definition, that is fascism.
Yes. Now if you're into that Umberto, whatever the fuck, 14 points of fascism, dumbass, has no idea what the fuck he's talking about. I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, these fucking stupid fucking people. You can read the doctrine of fascism. It's a very short read. You can see what the fuck what the fuck he's actually getting at. Like, it's. I get fucking angry when people try to tell me about fascism, but they've never actually read fucking.
Why not look at the historical definition of it, right?
Yeah, why not fucking read what Mussolini had to say? He invented it.
But I hate seeing that shit. Like, what people use it for debates. Like, these debate me bros are like, "Oh, I use Umberto's 7 points of fascism. Number 1 is blah 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 blah." Like, and then it has to have like, some features of it is like racism and blah blah blah. Like,
no,
what most of that is like what happens after the fact.
It's useful, but it's not required, right? Like, yeah. People don't like that fucking essay came out in the fucking like 94 or some shit, 50 fucking, I'm sorry, not 50, like 80 fucking years after fucking fascism was coined and fucking like, and did you ever read Mussolini or Strasser or any of those fucking people? No, you didn't. Like, you didn't fucking give a shit because it fucking sounded cool for your narrative. Oh, the fucking 14 points of fascism. Get the fuck out of here. Go fuck yourself.
Right.
Sorry, I get really fucking angry about that shit. So the public-private at page 411, the public-private partnership. The term public-private partnership means an agreement between a public agency and a private entity to finance, build, and maintain or operate a program, probably is what it is. Page 413, public-private partnerships. In the case of a project to be carried out through a public-private partnership, the public partner shall have conducted a value for money analysis or similar comparative analysis and determined the appropriateness of the public-private partnership agreement. Applicability. This section and the amendments made by this section shall only apply to a public-private partnership agreement entered into on or after the date of enactment of this act. What they're telling you here is if those fucking public-private partnerships precede this fucking act, they don't have any fucking oversight over this. Smoke and mirrors, man. Smoke and mirrors. Reconnecting communities through publicly funded gentrification pilot program. Page 420, capital construction grants. Eligible entities. Secretary may award a grant, referred to in this section as a capital construction grant, to the owner of an eligible facility to carry out an eligible project described in paragraph 3 for which all necessary feasibility studies and other planning activities have been completed. Partnerships. An owner of an eligible facility may, for the purposes of submitting an application for a capital construction grant, if applicable, partner with a state, a unit of local government, a tribal government, metropolitan planning organization, or a nonprofit organization.
501c4, right?
Yes. A capital, or 501c3 or 501c4.
501c, yeah.
A capital construction grant is basically taking existing vested capital, like a fucking train station or whatever, and pumping more capital into it to make it more valuable, right? Retrofitting that existing fucking chingadera. And when they do that, the property value of everything around it skyrockets, right? So say fucking BlackRock decides to buy all the housing around Union Station, and they decide to pump a fucking capital construction grant into Union Station. They just fucking saw their investment on those properties just through the fucking roof. This also ties into the use of municipal bonds, right? And people fucking buy fucking municipal bonds, and then based on the fucking property value of all that shit that is associated with it, that skyrockets the fucking these capital construction grants will skyrocket the value of those municipal bonds. Shout out to Alexandra, who did a fucking amazing article on municipal bonds that I never even considered to look into. Right, Ro Khanna fucking moved all of his investments out of the fucking war machine, but he put them all into fucking municipal bonds. And then all of a sudden, this fucking insanely profitable fucking aspect of municipal bonds comes out. That's called insider trading. That's called front running. This is fucking cheating. Using public funds to pump in your fucking profit. Say what?
And they're trying to legalize that even more now.
Yes. This not even more. This completely legalizes it forever.
Goodness gracious, man. Legalize corruption.
Oh yeah. The cyber pandemic. Oh no.
Yeah. We had Klaus Schwab talking about that recently. He was comparing the COVID-19 pandemic to the cyber pandemic, how we have to prep for that. And now they're talking about all these hacks and like how we have to have a more secure internet system. So yeah, tell us more about this cyber pandemic.
Page 427, cybersecurity tool in general. Not later than 2 years after the date of the enactment of this act, the administrator shall develop a tool to assist transportation authorities in identifying, detecting, protecting against, responding to, and recovering from cyber incidents. Page 428, designation of cyber coordination in general, not later than 2 years after the date of the enactment of this act, the administrator shall designate an office as a cyber coordinator, which shall be responsible for monitoring, alerting, and advising transportation authorities of cyber incidents. Dun, dun, dun!
And of course, all of those are from foreign agents, right?
It's got to be Russia. What about if Russia fucking hacked the gas infrastructure in the middle of winter and killed everyone on the East Coast? Or what about this crazy colonial hack that happened? We promised it was a hack. It wasn't a
Or what? Worse yet, what if Russia hacks our computers and then through that the internet virus, the computer virus becomes a biological virus, and then we have another biological pandemic that happens because of Russia.
No. Russia.
And they
also
collaborated
Iran.
With China.
And also, and North
can't
Korea. And Venezuela is definitely in on it. Did you know that there's at least 17 Venezuelans living underneath my bed?
Didn't you know Venezuela tries to hack our elections via viruses?
Yes. Venezuela has all that fucking money to pump into hacking American elections. Yeah, I definitely have North Koreans in my attic that are always watching me. I have Venezuelans living underneath my bed. I have Russians in my closet.
Yeah.
I have Iranians in my garage just waiting for me to step out. Dude, it's terrifying.
Cyber
czar, there you are.
Where are the Chinese people?
The Chinese people are patrolling the street outside the house.
Just have everybody.
They're coming for me, fam. They're coming for me.
Are they all at Rachel Maddow's house too?
Yeah, they're all at Rachel Maddow's house. You caught them. And also fucking any other fucking legacy media fucking
Wolf Blitzer.
bucket of dicks. Yeah, Wolf Blitzer. Most boring man on the fucking planet. Cyberzar, there you are. Page 428. Share the information collected under subparagraph A with the Transportation Security Administration and Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Monitor cyber incidents that affect transportation authorities. Alert transportation authorities to cyber incidents that affect those transportation authorities. Investigate unaddressed cyber incidents that affect transportation authorities and provide to transportation authorities. And provide to transportation authorities educational resources, outreach, and awareness on the fundamental principles and best practices in cybersecurity for transportation systems. Fam, they gotta fucking build this propaganda effort to make sure that you know how dangerous these motherfuckers are.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
Well, not really at this point.
But also in that is it's a data mine, bro. He just gets to fucking this new Office of Security, you know, because they got to keep us safe, as in the Patriot Act kind of shit, right? They got to keep us safe. They get to fucking compile all that data and keep it forever and have it on a big ass database. How does that make you feel? Did you pass gas while crossing the intersection of 4th Street and 7th Street in that 2027?
It's important to know that because apparently domestic terrorists show a pattern of passing gas 15 times in a 1-hour trip. So if you're reaching that point of passing gas 15 times, you've passed gas 14 times. So you're running the risk of being
a cyber
domestic terrorist.
Yeah. Don't you know? I know we shouldn't be doing fart jokes with serious shit, but come on, man. That ain't it, Chief. Listen, fat.
Yeah.
All right. So the report on emerging alternative fuel vehicles and infrastructure, pipeline placement. Page 430 identifies areas where emerging alternative fueling infrastructure will be needed to meet the current and future needs of drivers during the 5-year period beginning on the date of submission of the report. Identifies specific areas such as lack of pipeline infrastructure that may impede deployment and adoption of emerging alternative fuel vehicles. Includes a map that identifies concentrations of emerging alternative fuel vehicles to meet the needs of current and future emerging alternative fueling infrastructure, and estimates the future need for emerging alternative fueling infrastructure to support the adoption and use of emerging alternative fueling vehicles. So when I was in the fucking gas station industry and I was doing a lot of truck stops, there's something called thirsty zones, right? And this data is like available for all the fucking people that have truck stops and fucking want to build truck stops and all that shit. So they already know where these fucking people get most of their fucking fueling, right? But this takes that and puts it into a public-private partnership that the state and capital are both have access to and get to decide where they need these pipelines the most. Isn't that fucking cool? Because we really need pipeline infrastructure. Right there. We really need pipeline infrastructure. That because if we don't have pipeline infrastructure, how are we going to have all these fucking new fucking propane and hydrogen and natural gas and
the entire country is just going to be covered with pipelines or roads.
Pipelines
highways.
Under the roads, next to the roads, in the right of ways of roads. Yes, that's what we're doing here. That's what this fucking bill is. And I guarantee you none of those are publicly owned. They're publicly funded, but they're privately owned. Non-highway recreational fuel study to tax you with. Page 432, an evaluation of whether the current recreational trails program funding level respects reflects the amount of non-highway recreational fuel taxes collected and transferred to the Highway Trust Fund, and the heads of state agencies designated by governors pursuant to Section 206 C1 of Title 23 United States Code to administer the Recreational Trails Program, division offices of the department, the Secretary of the Treasury, the Administrator of the Federal Highway Administration, and groups representing recreational activities and interests, including hiking, biking, mountain biking, horseback riding, water trails, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing, snowmobiling, off-highway motorcycling, all-terrain vehicles and other off-road motorized vehicles, and recreational trail advocates. What they're telling you here is, if you dare to go hiking or anything like that, bitch, we're going to charge you for that. Bitch, better have my fucking money.
Right.
This is when I fucking told you, fucking Franco, you can't just run from these fucking people. They're fucking putting up this IoT CV2X shit every fucking where, man, including fucking recreational trails, right? Because like if it was just the fucking like the use of gasoline or whatever the fuck for like ATVs and whatever the fuck, like okay, but dude, this is including hiking, biking, and mountain biking, and horseback riding, water trails, snowshoeing, all these things. They're going to charge you to use your fucking land. This land is our land. This is not fucking theirs to fucking charge you on. But they have.
And you're never alone. And this is not even taking into account the digital IDs, right? And these what is it called? These trackers that can detect whether you're going to be sick or not.
Yeah. Well, that's all going to play into it, right? That could be in the Build Back Better Act. That could be also in here. But I know that CV2X is going to fucking be the cellular vehicle to everything. Now, the everything is never defined, right? So everything could be your digital ID.
You know, if we were to tell people this in like the early 2000s, it would call us conspiracy theorists. And now those same people are telling us, they're calling us conspiracy theorists for being against it. Now that it's finally here, the goalpost just keeps moving. It's sad to see how generations of indoctrination has led to these domesticated humans, like what Sky Daddy was calling them the other day, that we now have today.
Yeah. I mean, it's... This isn't like, this is why I'm really focusing mostly on legislation, because I can tell you all the theories about what I think they're going to do. They're telling you right here. They're fucking telling you. Like, I don't need to come up with a theory. They're telling you what they're going to do to you. So,
and this isn't like a simulation, like Event 201. This isn't like just ideas that are brought about in books, like in Klaus Schwab's COVID-19, The Great Reset. Like, this is actual legislation that they're trying to get passed.
Yes, this is actual legislation on the floor. It's bipartisan. It's bipartisan, man. It's bipartisan.
That's when you really should be worried if it's bipartisan, because if all these people are bought out by the same people, if they all agree on something, it's because all their donors agree on something.
Oh, yeah, buddy. They all agree. No fucking problem. Buy America wherever you want. Page 434. Waivers, in general. Not less than 15 days before issuing a waiver under this section, the Secretary shall provide to the public notice of the proposed waiver, an opportunity for comment on the proposed waiver, and the reasons for the proposed waiver. This is amending the Buy America Act. This means, yeah, you don't have to buy America. You can import whatever the fuck you want as long as you fucking ask for a waiver and you paid your fucking bribes to the fucking czar. Everything's cool. Isn't that cool? An opportunity for comment on the proposed waiver. I love that one, because remember when they did that with Kratom, and they had to shut down the fucking public comments on Kratom because people were fucking furious that they were trying to outlaw Kratom? Yeah, this is the same kind of shit, but like nobody's really going to give a shit. You're going to have to dig and dig and dig and dig and dig to find out who did the fucking waiver for what product to fucking import from where. Like, come on, dude. Get the fuck out of here. Go fuck yourself. Buy America. It lasted what? All of 3 fucking seconds? So here's the high priority corridors on the national highway system, right? And this is something that I was I touched on with pasta, but like, and rest assured, every single fucking one of what they consider the high priority corridors on this national highway system has to do with pipelines. I could fucking come up with an entire fucking episode showing you exactly where each and every one of these fucking where each and every one of these fucking things actually go through, and I can link it to a pipeline. I can link it to a fucking pumping station or a repump station. I can link it, and all roads lead to Gulfport, right? For the export of natural gas to Europe and sour crude and tar sands to Africa. Because who cares about fucking Africans, right? They really need us to develop them with our shitty fucking super crazy taxed fucking filthy oils, right? But this one right here is the high priority corridors on the national highway system for pipelines. This is the Central Texas corridor. Now, what I did here is I took all of the plot points of where they're going to be fucking running this new fucking interstate or highway or whatever the fuck, and I put it into a Google Maps. And this is what it looks like here, right? That looks very strangely similar to that fucking Permian oil basin, doesn't it? Like very strangely similar.
Yeah.
Except everything ends in Houston. Now, what I'm thinking here, they keep referring to emergency planning and resiliency. And they're building these new fucking highways north of the sea. So I think they're planning for some serious natural disasters along Houston, Nolens, Mobile, all those different places, right?
Was it in Houston where there was the snowstorm that knocked out the electricity, or was that Dallas?
It was everywhere, but Houston got a lot of their feeds fucking interrupted from the snowstorm. But it's also hurricanes, really.
Yeah.
I mean, hurricanes fuck the natural gas and fucking crude pipeline system all up because all the refineries most of them sit in Houston, but they're all seem to be moving north. Here's some nanotech Cherokee land theft shenanigans, right? So this is what they consider to be nationally significant highway between Springdale, Arkansas, and an area very, very close to the Oklahoma Cushing oil hub, right? And so what I have there on the right, that purely coincidence right there, that Cushing oil hub, fucking a lot of oil, crude oil, flows into Cushing, and then from that Cushing oil hub flows out to refineries. Now, there are oil futures that have been trading in the Springdale, Arkansas area, but they haven't found yet, or they could just be delaying the information until they get this thing built, and then all of a sudden, bam, they're going to find it. But also I found something else in here is there was a company called Nanomech that specialized in nanotechnology that was invested in by Aramco, the Saudi Aramco, the biggest oil company on the planet, that invested tens of millions of dollars into this company a few years ago. And then last year, it declared bankruptcy and reincorporated under another name. Now, what I'm thinking here is with this nanotech is if they can inject nanotech into that Cushing oil hub, then it can bond to those hydrocarbons and they can track absolutely everywhere that this natural gas and crude is being used from origin point to end user, right? This is definitely not nationally significant, right? But here's the sad fact about it is it goes right through Cherokee land. And and there's nothing that they can do to stop them. Yeah.
Not even a strike would do anything, right?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. That there colonial hack, though, this is a really significant, this Alabama corridor. Now, see what I mean by they're moving everything north here? It's very strangely fucking similar to the trajectory of the Atlantic Sunrise Pipeline, right? That Atlantic Sunrise Pipeline, at least from what I can tell, is going to be the replacement for the Colonial, because the Colonial is old. It doesn't work that well anymore. And yeah, like I can tell you as a matter of fucking fact, they know exactly how much leaked and exactly exactly where, because they use something called a PIG. It's a monitoring system that measures pressure from point to point anywhere in a pipeline system, and if it loses pressure, then they know there's a leak, right? It has a long history of why it's called PIG. Like they came up with an acronym for it, but originally it was called PIG because it had to do with straw, and when you suck straw through a pipeline, it squeals like a fucking pig, right? But
wow,
like,
what
yeah.
an interesting way to come up with the name.
Well,
and it's running through all of the places that the Colonial Pipeline would run through, from Texas all the way up to New York City, New Jersey.
Yeah, and then it also goes south and hits like Mobile and fucking Gulfport and all that shit, right? Here's your Georgia corridor here, right? That's really significant, we promise. But isn't that like really strangely similar to that Transco pipeline right next to it?
Yeah.
Isn't that like just, I'm sure it's purely coincidence, right? But yeah. So the Active Transportation Infrastructure Investment Program. And like I said, dude, if you want to do like a full-on pipeline segment, I will bring out all the maps that I fucking plotted. I will bring out all the fucking pipelines.
Yeah. We should have a segment focused on pipelines.
Like, because I found them all, and I know exactly where all of them are. And there's pork in there for Kentucky, thanks Mitch McConnell. There's pork in there for Lindsey Graham in North Carolina. There's pork in there. There's pork in there for certain senators. I know who put that shit in there, and I know why, right? Like, and I can do an entire fucking segment on that. I could do like a 3-4 hour fucking segment on that, because I legit fucking plotted every single one of those maps. So Active Transportation Infrastructure Investment Program. Bitch, you ain't driving. Page 485, the Active Transportation Network. The term Active Transportation Network means facilities built for active transportation, including sidewalks, bikeways, and pedestrian and bicycle trails that connect between destinations within a community or metropolitan region. Active transportation spine. The term active transportation spine means facilities built for active transportation, including sidewalks, bikeways, pedestrian and bicycle rails, trails that connect between communities, metropolitan regions, or states. What they're doing here is they're making sure that you have an alternative after they price you out of driving. Highway Cost Allocation Study. Page 48, the federal costs occasioned in the design, construction, rehabilitation, and maintenance of federal highways by the use of vehicles of different dimensions, weights, number of axles, and other specifications and frequency of those vehicles in traffic stream, the safety emissions, congestion, and noise-related costs of highway use by various types of users, and other costs as determined by the Secretary, and the proportionate share of the costs described in paragraph 1 that are attributable to each class of highway users. Now, what the fuck are they really talking about there? Now, each class of highway users. We promise we're not raising taxes. We're really not raising taxes. Page 490, the recommendations on completion of the study under the subsection of the Secretary, in coordination with the Secretary of the Treasury, shall develop recommendations for a set of revenue options to fully cover the costs occasioned by highway users, including recommendations for changes to existing revenue streams and new revenue streams based on user fees. This is a tax cut for the middle and lower class. So Biden said, page 504, strategic innovation for revenue collection. In general, the secretary shall establish a program to test the feasibility of a road usage fee and other user-based alternative revenue mechanisms, referred to in this section as user-based alternative revenue mechanisms, to help maintain the long-term solvency of the Highway Trust Fund through pilot projects at the state, local, and regional level. I just sent this out and I forgot to put it in the slides, but a friend of mine from Virginia got a fucking notice from the NVD that there's going to be different registration costs for electric powered vehicles, and they're going to raise the registration costs for a gas powered vehicle that gets more fuel mileage. So even if you think you're cutting costs by having a more fuel efficient vehicle, bitch, you're getting taxed on that fucking on the money you saved. Sorry.
No escape. I'm actually looking for that because you sent it to one of the servers that we're in.
Yeah.
I'm trying to look for it. It was yesterday, right?
Yeah. It's probably in. I can't fucking remember where I put it. I put it somewhere.
No, I know where you put it. I'm just scrolling up. There's a lot of messages that were sent.
Yeah. Well, while you do that,
yeah,
we're going to use the billionaires to tax you. Page 506, to test a variety of solutions, including the use of independent and private third-party vendors for the collection of data and fees from user-based alternative revenue mechanisms, including the reliability and security of those solutions and vendors. To test solutions to ensure the privacy and security of data collected for the purpose of implementing a user-based alternative revenue mechanism. And if you don't like it, we'll make you like it, bitch. Page 506, to conduct public education and outreach to increase the public awareness regarding the need for user-based alternative revenue mechanisms for surface transportation programs, and to evaluate the ease and compliance and enforcement of a variety of implementation approaches for different users of the surface transportation system. Now, what they're doing here is two-pronged in this fucking little thing here. They're saying they're going to create a propaganda mechanism to tell you how awesome it is for climate change that we're doing this, because it's the climate change. It's the climate change.
We care about the environment.
We really care about the Green New Deal. We have to blah, 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 blah.
You can bet your ass that AOC and Cory Bush and all of them are going to be championing this and be like, this is great for the environment. Great for the environment. This is the Green New Deal that we wanted. By the way, here's what you were talking about, right? This is what you sent that you were referring to that your friend got in Virginia. Can you see that?
Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
I'm trying to double screen because I don't have two monitors. Sorry.
It's all good. So highway use fee, or HUF. The purpose of the highway use fee is to ensure a more fair contribution to the Commonwealth Transportation Fund from the fungi efficient and electric vehicle using highways in the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth Transportation Fund is funded in part by motor fuels taxes. The highway use fee is effective July 1st, 2020, and will be updated on a yearly basis. So this year, and Build Back Better, the Build Back Better Act is a way that they'll update this, I imagine.
No, this is the Invest in America Act.
Oh, okay.
That's a pilot that I just referred to. So they're rolling out the pilots, and they haven't even passed the fucking act yet. But if they roll out the pilots beforehand, then they're automatically eligible for the grants first in line.
Jeez.
Which also tells me that there's going to be separate taxes involved. There's going to be local taxes, there's going to be fucking state taxes, and there's going to be federal taxes that you're going to have to fucking pay to fucking drive their fucking roads. Yeah. How does
It
make you
says
feel?
here, like, the vehicles that are exempt from the highway use fee are vehicles with combined miles per gallon rating less than 25 miles per gallon, autocycles, motorcycles, mopeds, a vehicle with a gross weight greater than 10,000 pounds, so like 18 wheelers.
Yes.
A vehicle that is owned by a governmental entity, a vehicle
Yes.
registered under the international registration plan. So things that you don't commonly see with a working class person, except for maybe motorcycles and mopeds.
Yeah. Pretty much, man. They're taxing you they're taxing every. The problem with markets is, and I'm pretty sure fucking Marx outlined this really well, is fictitious capital requires unending growth, constant growth, right? And eventually you run out of fucking markets, right? That's why Lenin fucking said that you had the fourth stage of capitalism. The final stage is imperialism, right? Because they have to consume more markets. They have to fucking keep going and keep going and keep going and find more and more markets. Well, they've run out of fucking markets again. Now you're the fucking market. You and everything about you, where you drive, where you eat, where you fucking live, you're the fucking market.
Like where you rest.
Where you rest.
Everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything is profit.
Yes. Everything is fucking profit. And unfortunately, like, this is just the way that a market system that exalts the laws of the market functions, right? Because like what they'll teach you in like Chicago schools and all that shit is that these are just like naturally occurring laws. It's bullshit. Markets are fucking engineered, right? They're engineered through people that have enough liquid capital and vested capital both to manipulate the prices of markets up and down to further monopolize all that shit. But eventually they do run out of fucking ways to fucking find growth, right? Eventually you reach a pinnacle. And this is their new market. This is the new fucking feeding frenzy. They're coming after you. They're taxing the fuck out of you. That's why they need the public-private partnership, so that the fucking private entities can profit off of the taxes that are being imposed upon you by the state. Right? It's endemic. And then also something that was really fucking scary to me here is to evaluate the ease of compliance and enforcement of a variety of implementation approaches. Imagine you're on your way to work and your fucking digital account that they have fucking linked to your Google ID and your digital ID and all that shit. You're out of fucking money, but you're on your way to work and you got your fucking paycheck coming later in the day once it clears, and you don't have the fucking money to fucking drive to work. Well, now you're going to get pulled over. Cop's going to say, hey, you're out of money. You can't fucking drive. What the fuck were you thinking? And then they're going to fucking either imprison you or they'll fucking impose another fucking fine on you, right? And be able to make more fucking cash on your ass. That's something that I see coming from this. That's purely speculative, but when they say to evaluate the ease of compliance and enforcement, that tells me law enforcement, right?
I can see that happening.
Yeah.
I mean, these cops already work at the behest of corporations and
well,
the fascist state.
Also, like, let's say, for the sake of argument, that you want to go hiking, but you don't have any fucking money in your digital ID. You're going to get fucking stopped by the cops. They're going to fucking arrest you on the spot. How dare you fucking trespass? Because that's going to be a trespassing thing, right? You didn't pay the fucking fee to get on this fucking national fucking land, this federal land. You're going to get fucking thrown in prison for trespassing, right? Say you want to walk to your homie's house on these new safe streets, on these new complete streets, but you don't have enough money to fucking walk to his house on these sidewalks. Yeah, you're gonna be fucking arrested or fucking fined. How does that sound? Those are speculations, but I see that as a master grand plan for that, right?
I can see it.
Restricting the movement of people. National motor vehicle per mile user fee pilot. Now, that's what we were just going over right there with that. In selecting, at page 514, in selecting the methods described in subsection C1, the Secretary shall coordinate with entities that voluntarily provide to the Secretary for use under the pilot program any of the following vehicle miles traveled collection tools. Third-party onboard diagnostic devices, smartphone applications such as Android mobile, telemetric data collected by automakers, motor vehicle data obtained by car insurance companies, data from the states that received grant under section of the FAST Act, motor vehicle data obtained from fueling stations, and any other method that the Secretary considers appropriate. This is why I keep calling the fucking Secretary the Czar now, because they just get to define whatever the fuck is appropriate, right? One of the things that's scariest with that is that if you drive like an asshole, right, or you do hard braking, or you have loss of traction, or you change a lane too fast, or any of those things, they'll charge you fucking more because you're driving like an asshole, right? Mm-hmm. That's why they have to fucking encompass all of these things, like third-party onboard diagnostics, like OnStar and kind of shit, right? Your smartphone applications, your telemetric data. So like if you have if a check engine light is hitting on your ride because you have some fucking emissions issues or whatever, they'll charge you more for that. Motor vehicle data obtained by car insurance companies. So like Snapshot, Progressive uses Snapshot to try and lower your fucking rate based on how well you drive. Data from the states that received a grant under that FAST Act. I need to find more on what that FAST Act is actually, what part of the FAST Act that's actually referring to. And motor vehicle data obtained from fueling stations that can track through the car that you fucking put in there how much you're fueling up, and that can basically find out what your MPG, what your miles per gallon is. And they'll charge you a premium based on all those things. And any other method that the Secretary considers appropriate. Like, I don't know, you voted or you didn't vote last election season, if they just deem that appropriate. Yeah, it's whatever.
They'll be like, hey, other countries doing it. Yeah. And, we already have like a credit system. Like it was like, oh, what's your credit score? Like that determines whether you can have a certain phone plan, whether you can have AT&T, Verizon, or T-Mobile. And Mariana brings up a great point here. Said insurance companies already capturing your driving habits. That's absolutely true. And they're going to continue capturing data, it seems like, with what we're reading here.
Well, also, when you finance a vehicle, they have a GPS in that vehicle. So they can repossess whenever you're delinquent. They never take that out. And also, under the cover of COVID 2020, they used that, and I can't remember where I read the article, but they used that to mandate all vehicles coming off the line now have CV2X ready SIM cards because safety or something. So everything coming off the line now has a SIM card in it, and that's why they need 4G or 5G so that they can fucking support the CV2X cellular vehicle to everything technology, right? Emerging tech and research pilot program. We told you, bitch, you ain't driving. Mm-hmm. Research and development activities relating to leveraging advanced and additive manufacturing technologies, which is what I was just referring to increase the structural integrity and cost effectiveness of surface transportation infrastructure, and research and development activities, including laboratory and test track supported accelerated pavement testing research regarding the impacts of connected, autonomous, and platooned vehicles on pavement and infrastructure performance, to reduce the impact of automated and connected driving systems and advanced driver assistance systems on the pavement, and infrastructure performance, and to improve transportation infrastructure design and anticipation of increased usage of automated driving systems and advanced driver systems. So what they're doing right here with that platoon vehicles, it sounds exactly what it is. It's a platoon of automated vehicles, like a convoy. So say fucking 30 fucking semis in a row, all automated, fucking traveling in one fucking direction. They want to make sure the pavement can handle that. And impacts of connected autonomous and platoon vehicles, that means the CV2X is going to fucking dictate how those autonomous vehicles move. Now, there's a scene in Minority Report where fucking main character, and I've got issues with that film because I'm a fan of Philip K. Dick's like written works. I get really angry at the way that films fucking put happy endings and shit and change storylines.
The Hollywoodification.
Hollywoodification, yes.
Yeah.
Fucking bastards.
People's
like,
work.
Yeah. Yeah. And they do it with every one of his books. But like there's a scene in that film where it notices there's a warrant out for his arrest for the pre-crime, and it stops the vehicle right in the fucking highway. Bam! That's what we're moving to. And this tells you how. Research and tech development and deployment. We doing this whether you like it or not, bitch. Page 525. Engage with public and private entities to spur advancement of emerging transformative innovations through accelerated market readiness. And consult frequently with public and private entities on new transportation technologies. Page 526. Studies on the deployment and revenue potential of the deployment of energy and broadband infrastructure and highway rights of way, including potential adverse impacts or the use or non-use of those rights of way. Now, what I was telling you about the rights of way before, this is how they put all their CV2X devices on the rights of way of highways, right? This is how they fucking gridify, I guess, for lack of a better term, put you in their fucking matrix. They have all this tracking shit for broadband bouncing off of your fucking devices in your fucking ride. And whether you like, and like, if you think that you have a fucking vehicle that was like manufactured in the 90s or whatever the fuck, like I do you have a fucking new fucking radio that you put in that motherfucker? Because DCRC or DSRC, dedicated short range communications technology, was already put in that motherfucker, right? And it's going to bounce off your cell phone. And if it doesn't fucking bounce off of any of those things, it's going to bounce off other things around you, right? Like this, they're going to be tracking absolutely everything you do and charging you for everything you do. This is what I was talking about with engineered markets. We engineer the supply and then we engineer your demand, right? Page 529, disseminating and evaluating information from accelerated market readiness efforts, including non-market ready technologies, to public and private entities. Now this is twofold. This is insider trading codified, that a public fucking entity is going to tell this private entity, this is where we're gonna fucking legislate, and this is what we're gonna be putting the infrastructure into, so you can invest here, and then they invest there, and then their fucking value goes up, right? But also, this is a way of engineering that supply, and then forcing you, the market engineers the supply, and then the state engineers your demand, right? And forces you to fucking buy into these things, right? You filthy plebs, you need more efficient central management. 534, this is really affecting my industry. Accelerated implementation and deployment of advanced digital construction management systems. In general, the Secretary shall establish and implement a program under the Technology and Innovation Deployment Program established under paragraph 1 to promote, implement, deploy, demonstrate, showcase, and support and document the application of advanced digital construction management systems, practices, performance, and benefits. So this is going to eliminate construction management jobs and put it under the power of fucking AI, right? There's going to be like a digital set of plans, like blueprints and shit. And one of the things that we always fucking do in the trades is we make sure everything's on paper. Yeah, we use digital, but we make sure everything's on fucking paper. That way they can't change the fucking plans in the middle of it and fucking say that, oh, you didn't do this right. We can say, yes, you did. Yes, we did. Here's the paper that you fucking, that the original proposal, you need to give us a change order for this, right? So this allows them to at any time just change the project in the middle of it, and contractors are going to have to eat that cost. But also this is going to connect like fucking smart technologies. So like a lot of things that happen in the trades is everything looks good on paper. God save us from the hands of architects and engineers. And then people in the field have to figure it out. What this is going to do is this going to fucking like build tools and data management systems to make you install it the way they wanted it installed. And this is going to fuck projects fucking 40 ways from Sunday. And then they're going to be able to fucking like pinpoint, oh, you're a 1/4 inch off here. Oh, you're 3/8 of an inch off over here. Oh, this wall isn't where it's supposed to be. And it's centralization fucks everything. I know, sorry, Stalinists and fucking Leninists out there getting fucking all penny wet with me talking about fucking centralization isn't the way. I know, democratic.
Especially with the current ruling class. Like, how the heck are you expect to have? What if you demand to these people to do the things that you want them to do? Like, it's all gonna work. They're all of a sudden gonna have a change of heart.
Yeah.
Just because you protested.
Right. I mean, these people have their fucking plans. Your protests mean nothing to them, right? Well, yeah, this fully fucking does some centralization that's really gonna fuck with my industry really, really bad, bro. And it's gonna force management systems out of existence and therefore force them back down into the working class, and that's gonna make them default on loans. And it's really fucking, that's gonna be an economic shock in and of itself, right? Nah, seriously, you're in the matrix now. Page 544, retrofitting dedicated short-range communications technology deployed as part of an existing pilot program to sell your vehicle to everything technology, subject to the condition that the retrofitted technology operates only within the existing spectrum allocations for connected vehicle systems. This is what I was talking about with the Internet of Things and how they make that all fucking work. So let's take a break from all that and let's look at some good news brought to you by Bernie Sanders.
Right.
Section, and this is in the reconciliation bill, right? This is not the infrastructure package. This is Bernie's fucking 3.5 trillion, whatever, fucking healthcare, fucking childcare, whatever the fuck, platitudes, cliches. Brought to you also by Jack Sith. Thanks for putting this all together.
Thanks, Jack. I had this
Jack,
in
you are a bad motherfucker. Section 318, deficit neutral reserve funding relating to federal relief funds for state or local governments. The chairman of the committee on the budget of the Senate, this is Bernie Sanders now, but who knows who's going to be fucking later, may revise the allocations of a committee or committees, aggregates, and other appropriate levels in this resolution and make adjustments to the pay-as-you-go ledger for one or more bills, joint resolutions, amendments between the houses, motions, or conference reports relating to adjustments to federal relief funds for state or local governments within the jurisdiction of the instructed committees, which may include limitations on new or existing federal COVID-19 relief payments to a state or locality that imposes greater limits on the content of speech or restrictions on the religious exercise or belief of houses of worship and faith-based organizations described in 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code and exempt from taxation under Section 501A of such code, that on secular organizations described in 501c3 and exempt under that section 501A by the amounts provided in such legislation for those purposes, provided that such legislation would not increase the deficit over either the period of the total fiscal years 21 through 2025 or the period of the total fiscal years 21 through 30. What is he telling you here? He is telling you that federal funding can be held back to a state that does not fucking limit the content of speech or the religious exercise or the religious exercise or belief of houses of worship or any secular organization that does not fucking do as they're fucking told, like lockdowns, or
Yeah.
mandate vaccines or any of those things. Brought to you by Bernie Sanders. Thank you, sir. Come on. Give me some good news, Bernie. Come on, man.
This just shows how anybody who's still propping Bernie Sanders up, who's saying that anybody who opposes this bill is like is an enemy, like how they're demonizing cinema and Mansion, which they should be demonized because they want something even worse. But like it just shows you that these people that are defending these bills haven't even freaking read it.
No.
They're
Nobody does.
just running a grift. And then everybody who supports those channels that are cheering it on, they haven't even read it either.
Mm-hmm. Nobody ever reads the bills, man. But
it's too much
lucky
work.
for you, there's 4 people that read those bills.
Yeah, you, Jack Sitz, Seb Solomon, and Ali Alexandra.
Your gnomes for truth.
Thank you,
Here we are,
guys.
in the flesh. The chairman of the committee on the budget of the Senate may revise the allocations of a committee or committees, aggregates, or other appropriate levels in this resolution to make adjustments to the pay-as-you-go ledger. For one or more bills, joint resolutions, amendment between houses, or motions, or conference reports relating to the funding, the nation's police through programs that are within the jurisdiction of any committee of the Senate instructed under Section 202 or 2002. Which may include funding for law enforcement officer safety programs and fusion centers to protect the United States from domestic and international terrorists administered by the Department of Homeland Security, mental and behavioral health intervention programs administered by the Department of Health and Human Services, programs administered by the Department of the Veterans Affairs to increase the hiring of military veterans as law enforcement officers, gang and youth violent education programs administered by the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Education by the amounts provided in such legislation for those purposes, provided that such legislation would not increase deficit over the period of the total fiscal years 21 through 25 or the period of total fiscal years 21 through 30. What he's telling you here is he can allocate new funds to the police, but even more fucking terrifying here. The fact that they're putting out this mental behavioral intervention programs administered by the Department of Health and Human Services. Say you don't want to take the jab. You're fucking crazy. You need some institution. Does that sound like something you want to be going through with there?
Concentration camps, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like how they're doing it, what they're doing in Australia.
Yeah. How about that, buddy? This is how it happens here. This is how it happens here. Thanks, Bernie. And then, of course, the whole fucking language of fucking fusion centers. That's heavy Fourth Industrial Revolution stuff. Go check out fucking everything Alison McDowell has to say about fusion centers. She's amazing. And then to protect the United States from domestic and international terrorists. Administered by DHS. This is bad. Like, this is really fucking bad. But, I mean, this is Bernie, too. This is Saint Bernard.
He knows what he's doing.
Oh, yeah. He knows exactly what the fuck he's doing.
He just doesn't care. He only cares about his own comfort. He's set right now. Like, he's not going to... I mean, if you look at his age, too, he's not going to be seeing a lot of the effects of this bill, you know, as things continue to get worse, you know, by, 2030, etc. He doesn't have to worry about that.
No, he doesn't. I really, coming from addiction recovery, the way that the state handles addiction and addiction recovery in general, it infuriates me. They put my people on fucking methadone and Suboxone. And that doesn't get you clean, man. That fucking puts you in plastic handcuffs. That's what we call it, plastic handcuffs. Because you're still getting still putting dope in your body. And it crushes your soul.
Any actual cure will put Big Pharma out of business. And so they just have
Well,
these
there's-
treatments that keep you coming back.
It's not even necessarily like the cure aspect. It's like it's keeping it bay, but it's like addressing some things within your shadow, and there's addressing a whole lot of spiritual aspects and woo-woo shit. But the way they handle addiction recovery, I don't trust them to handle mental and behavioral health intervention programs. I don't. What are they going to do? Shove more fucking dope in my fucking body that I don't want to fucking put in my body? I don't fucking put drugs in my body. I put nicotine in my body. I put fucking caffeine in my body, but I try to eat organic as much as I can. I'm increasingly considering limiting my content of meat and stuff like that. And I drink a lot of water, right? Like I don't drink sugary drinks. I don't fucking put sugar in my body because those are drugs. And their fucking solution for everything in the mental health industrial complex is just shove more fucking dope in your body. Shove more fucking dope in your body. And Xanax, benzodiazepines, in and of themselves, people fucking kill themselves overdosing all the fucking time on that shit.
Yeah.
And it puts you in a fucking state of constant fucking anguish and fucking self-loathing. And that's their treatment for it, is to make you fucking worse. So for them to fucking start trying to administer fucking behavioral health and intervention programs in conjunction with the whole fucking bitch do what you're fucking told on the COVID-19 fucking narrative. Yeah, I don't trust it.
And I guarantee you, there's everybody who's listening right now probably has a family member or a friend who has probably had to take Xanax or any of these other psychiatric drugs, and they probably witnessed them getting worse.
You know, I'm a dope fiend, right? And anyone out there that's watching, they've had addiction somehow or another touch their lives, whether they be addicted themselves or there's a family member that is addicted, a friend. Recovery is possible. 2 years ago, I used fucking many drugs over a long period of time. And 2 years ago, I decided to fucking, enough was enough, right? And it wasn't just as simple as just stop. There's a lot of shit that goes into that. I found recovery in the 12-step programs, but I didn't stop there, right? But if you are suffering or know someone that is suffering, don't lose hope. Don't lose hope. Recovery is possible. You can find a 12-step program somewhere near you. NAWS.org. That's Narcotics Anonymous world website.org. There's also Alcoholics Anonymous. But you know, I'm not here to promote that. But that's how I found my recovery, and I continue to work on things in my recovery and things for my soul and my spirit that I lost in addiction recovery. And I mean, this is a passion of mine that I've found now is how do I inform the people on what's actually happening in these legislative bodies. So that's my stump speech. Recovery is possible. Don't lose hope. And to sum this up, well, okay, Bernie. Deficit neutral reserve funding relating to increasing the federal minimum wage during a global pandemic. Chairman of the Committee of the Budget of the Senate may revise allocations of Committee of Committees, aggregates, and other appropriate levels on this resolution and make adjustments to the pay-as-you-go ledger for one or more bills. Joint resolutions, amendments between the houses, motions, and conference reports relating to increasing the federal minimum wage during a global pandemic, which may include prohibiting the rate from more than doubling to $15 per hour by the amounts provided to such legislation for those purposes, provided that such legislation would not increase the deficit over either the period of the total fiscal years 21 through 25 or the period of the total fiscal years 21 through 30. So I guess you might get a $15 minimum wage, but with all these new taxes and with the alarming inflation that we're having at the moment. I don't know if you remember what prices were like 2 years ago.
At this point. It's an insult at this point, a $15 minimum wage.
A $15 minimum wage is going to be actually worth less than
what we currently
your
have.
$7.25 was 2 years ago. This is and also there's like there's a market aspect to that as well. The rule, one of the main rules of the market is charge the maximum the market can bear. If they know you're all fucking making $15 an hour, they're gonna be raising the fucking prices on you. And I know there's people that are like, is there any data to support that? Bitch, it's a fucking market rule.
And Bernie Sanders knows this. He went to school for economics.
Yes.
He knows this. AOC went to school for economics. She knows this. And then this is what we're getting, crumbs, in addition to the overwhelming amount of horrible things that are going to be that are in this bill, that is going to further enrich the ruling class.
Oh yeah, man.
Well, yeah.
And I mean, this is only what I fucking went over you through was only 600 pages of this bill. This bill is 2,700 fucking pages long, dude.
This is just a fraction of the horrible stuff that's going to be passed.
Yeah.
And you went into depth with some of the other stuff with PASTA, which is also just, the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
A small portion.
Yeah. And I mean, directly before this provision here with the $15 minimum wage, it funds the Jerusalem embassy, the United States Jerusalem embassy, further solidifying that Palestine does not exist and will never exist. In Bernie's, let me rephrase that real quick. In Bernie's reconciliation bill, the codification of the end of Palestine has been written into fucking law. But he gave you a $15 minimum wage right after he did that.
Fuck Bernie. I'm so glad. I'm going to say this like on camera for people. I've said it before on Twitter. I'm so glad that Bernie Sanders isn't president.
Yeah.
He would be getting all things like this passed all the time and people would be cheering for it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So maybe this accelerationism is good for us to wake up.
Well,
as not be misled.
I'll bring addiction recovery back into it. You got to fucking put down the dope. And the dope here is electoralism and hopium and the belief that we can reform this system, right? Like, you got to fucking put that shit down if you ever fucking want to fucking, like, have some type of recovery, right? And this is like mental health recovery, right? Like, they've been fucking psychologically terrorizing you for fucking your entire fucking life since you were born, right? And there's ways to fucking do that, but you got to put down the dope. You got to put down that electoralism. There's nothing you can do at the fucking federal level. You've got to break their power. And the only way to do that is to fucking put power back in the hands of the municipality, I think. Agenda 2030, you only exist to serve the master. So until next time. And this is, I thought this was a really pertinent fucking picture here. This is a picture, this is part of the silent film Metropolis. This is a German-made film back from the 20s. When they were living in the roaring 20s or whatever, well, we were living in the roaring 20s. They were already in hyperinflation and their life was awful. But this is Shift Change in Metropolis, the film. Where there's a fucking gate opening for people to leave and they're all single-filed, heads down, hate their lives, and a gate opening for people to go in, all heads down, hating their lives, machines. Right. I highly recommend the film. It's one of the first true fucking working class films that basically outlines the world we're headed to. And it was about 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So go and check it out, man. It's a really fucking good film. If you can stamped silent films, and I think someone over in the 80s fucking put like a fucking a track over it, so it's kind of got like a John Carpenter kind of fucking musical track feel to it, but it's really cool.
Well, it's time for everybody who's aware now. Like one of the good things that happened in 2020 is that Bernie Sanders lost, and that woke a lot of people up, including myself.
Oh yeah.
And so people need to realize, I say at the end of my shows now, like, you're not alone, and I know you'll stay informed. And I don't mean that you're not alone as in like, oh, they're spying on you all over the place. I mean that there's other people like you that are seeing the corruption. So it's time to start talking to those people and start organizing with them. There's enough people that are just as informed as you now, that see things for what they are. So it's time to start talking to them and start discussing solutions. So yeah, I appreciate Shadowban for looking at this legislation, for torturing himself and reading all this. Same with Ali Alexandra and Seb Solomon and Jack Sith. You guys are amazing. And there's plenty of other people that are doing amazing work as well. But you have any final words that you want to tell everyone, Shadowban?
Yeah, man. What I'm dealing with here is some very dark shit, right? Like, there's a whole lot of like terrifying aspects to what I'm telling you, right? But don't allow yourself to slip into despair. And I always say this anytime I'm on the solutions call. Compassion and love is the cure for the things that are ailing us right now. Don't reach out in vengeance. Reach out in compassion and love for your fellow man. We need some post-partisan, like a post-partisan understanding that it's them against the rest of us. Them isn't the right wing. Them isn't fucking small business holders. Them isn't even millionaires anymore, right? Them isn't even billionaires, really. These are $1 trillion, quadrillion-dollar people that are after everything that we hold sacred. This is the Build Back Better agenda. This is the Great Reset. This is the Fourth Industrial Revolution. We've arrived. But don't allow yourself to slip into despair. Have love and compassion. Allow yourself to feel love and compassion. And get involved locally with people that you know. Start your own fucking organizations, right? Talk to people. Let people know that you're there for them. Go to farmers markets. Try to keep your money as local as you can, right? Like, if you're gonna fucking get an oil change, fuck the Valvoline or whatever the fuck down the street. Go to a fucking smaller shop, right? Like, do whatever you can to fucking keep your fucking community strengthened, because the more that they fucking rip us apart and atomize us, the more they win, right? And there is hope, just not in federal electoral politics. Because
they control that. And yeah, we can't vote our way out of this. We can't third party our way out of this. The pandemic, we're not going to vaccinate our way out of this. But yeah, like I said, guys, you're not alone. I know you'll stay informed. Polly, aka Shadowban Refugee, thank you very much for coming on the show, and I look forward to having you back on for more collaborations. Let's get into some more discussions about this act, as well as other legislation and pipelines. We can bring on some other guests and have a whole panel discussion.
Orale.
Orale. We'll leave
you with that. All sick.
All right, take care, everyone. I love you all.
Peace.